Welcome to the Fresh Between the Ears podcast. You may have noticed there's been a developing subculture in men's style, particularly around facial hair, where the clean-shaven metrosexual look of the 90s has been replaced with an era of anything goes, with beards and moustaches becoming extremely popular. And also barbering. You may have noticed that the barber you went to as a kid is very different to the modern-day barbershop. Back in the day, the barbershop was an uninspiring place. These days, barbershops use booking technology, custom fit-outs, shelves filled with grooming gear, and an army of very cool, creative people who express their art through sculpting hair. This podcast is designed to be a collection of mini-sodes where we explore these topics in detail. If you're into men's fashion or barbering, then we're sure to have something for you. Today we have a very special episode for you. We sit down with Collette, who runs the Australian Females Barbers Instagram page. Whilst working as a barber at the Cutting Edge Barbershop in Queensland, she's also a mother and she helps out with the Jack Reed Mobile Barbershop, which is dedicated to restoring people's sense of dignity via the Jack Reed Foundation. We cover all sorts of topics in this episode, from how barbering's changed over the years, women in barbering, and tips for young aspiring barbers coming up through the ranks. We hope you enjoy.
I started in 1989, opening up a barbershop and did my own apprenticeship in that shop. So, yeah, I kind of just fell into it. It was a business decision and I was a single mum at that time too. So I had 3 children to raise, so I was working 6 days a week in my own business and raising 3 kids from the ages of 5, 7 and 9 until 2011. And then I semi-retired, moved to WA, came back here to Brisbane. So I do 3 days a week. I'm at the Cutting Edge Barbers now, and so I do 3 days a week and love it. I wouldn't give up for anything. No.
Amazing. And I also see that you're involved with Jack Reed. Can you tell us a bit about what they do and what you do with those guys?
Yeah. So I became acquainted with Danielle and Teresa with Jack Reed Barbershop first through Australian Female Barbers page, and then she was looking for somebody to get on board with her to go to do weddings in the caravan, in the van, the barbershop, mobile van. So I go with Danielle and we do weddings and grooms and all that sort of thing at functions wherever they may be. And then also I do charity work with them. So they needed volunteers to go and cut hair with them. They do probably around 1,500 homeless, disadvantaged youth, at-risk youth haircuts every single year. A lot of work, yeah.
Amazing. And I saw, it looks like a mobile van that's been customised just for this. Can you tell us how did that come to fruition?
Well, it was a vision of Danielle's. She is very, very passionate. She comes from a social work background. So she ended barbering. She's been barbering for about 10 years now. And that passion for people just was still there. So she wanted to create a charity where she could do things for people, and that's evolving more now into education. So the vision for the Jack Reed Foundation is not just to do 1,000 haircuts a year. They actually do more. They want to they've started a 99 New Beginnings project, which is a shipping container which is going to be purpose-built, fitted out with the best equipment. We've got eye candy scissors on board already, and a number of other, great companies who are coming on board with equipment. And it will be providing training and apprenticeships for at-risk and disadvantaged youth.
How did you meet Danielle?
Big job. Through Instagram. Instagram. So I did a post for Danielle on Australian Female Barbers, and we just went from there. It just clicked. She was looking for somebody. She asked me did I know anybody who could go and do the weddings with her in the mobile barbershop and some charity work, and I just said, me. I've got 4 days a week free, and now I'm busier than ever. I've semi-retired, working 3 days, and now it's 7 days a week. I'm doing stuff all the time.
Yeah, and you're doing a lot of good.
Yeah,
making men look and feel great, and helping people. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And also now for the women in the industry, you run the Australian Female Barbers Instagram page. Can you tell me how that started?
So a year ago in May last year, I just started the page. I thought there's nothing out there in Australia, particularly for women. Barber Evo and the British Female Barber Association began probably a year before I started this page, and I've got associations just through Instagram with a couple of the girls there. And they kept saying to me, look, you've got nothing in Australia. What are you going to do? You've got to start something. So I did. So I started Australian Female Barbers. We're now a year in. We've got just over 2,200 followers, and I've done little competitions along the way. I promote them. Like, it's not that it's segregating male and female. What I'm trying to do is just promote that little girl in the shop down the street in the suburbs who thinks she's not particularly that good. But all of a sudden, we throw up a post on the page. She's over the moon. She's messaging back saying thank you so much, and then she's looking at everything else that's going on, and they draw a lot of inspiration from each other. So that's the deal. That's what I wanted to do, to just inspire people to realise that they're as good as anybody else in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, do you see it evolving? Because my memories of a barbershop as a kid growing up, I used to go to salons, usually unisex salons, and often it was a female, mostly hairdresser doing female, but she'll do male cuts, do the head wash and stuff. Yeah. The barbers back then were tended to be very male-dominated industry. Their shops weren't that well kept. The guys smell like salami. The haircut wouldn't be that great. And then in the last few years, barbershops, they've just evolved. They're really cool, like the Cutting Edge Barbers right here. We're sitting in an amazing looking barbershop. Yeah. And then more and more females, I'm noticing through Hair Expo, girls that are in hairdressing wanting to jump across into barbering. Yeah. Yesterday, I got my hair cut by an apprentice at Jimmy Rod's, female barber, and she came across from aged care, and she was in mining before that. So do you see the industry evolving to have more females being involved?
Yeah, for sure. I think when I first owned my shop, and we're going back, 3 decades, I was the only female barbershop owner in my town. So I was a bit of a novelty, the guys at the own shops around used to come and say g'day and see what was going on and just have a little bit of a squiz and see what I was up to. It was said that I wouldn't make it, so I guess I figured that out. But I do see it changing. It's a lot different than it used to be. You've got your barber courses now where people can jump in and say, for example, go to MIG training and do your Cert 3. So even older ladies, now we've got a girl called Jan who came and helped us with the charity the other week. We were at Homeless Connect down in Brisbane, and she's 55 years old. She comes from a saddlery background. She's very creative. She's good with leather work. She has a good eye for detail and creativity. So she decided that she wanted to try barbering. So she's 55 years old. She lives out here in Samford. She travels 2 hours, 3 days a week to go to MIG to learn. So it's right across the board. It's from the little girls who are 16, 17 coming out of school. We have our little apprentice here. She's just coming out of school. She's starting now. We're signing her up. We've got people who are in hairdressing. A lot of hairdressers are coming over into barbering because it's really a great job. Really, it is. It's something else. You're giving somebody. I know that hairdressing is you're still giving and you're creating and all that sort of thing, but when you've got a number of people coming through and it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour in your chair, and you're seeing a lot of people all day long, you get a lot of involvement with multiple people across the board and their lives and what they're doing. So that's it grows you as well. You grow as a person from doing what you do and discussing things and just enjoying, communication with people all day long. I think that's the best thing that I like so much about my job is the communication, the learning, the growth. Barbering's been a therapy, really, for me. Those moments when you're there doing a haircut and you're focused and you're creating something, all of a sudden everything else that's going on in the outside world is no longer there because you're there concentrating on your cut, and it's therapy. It's good. Yeah.
I find that too, because as a business owner, I'm a scientist and I spend sometimes a lot of time in the lab, which is developing products, which is very isolating. I don't talk to anybody, and I find my personality kind of, I don't know how to say it, but I kind of feel then when I go out in public, I get a bit more social anxiety. Whereas like this weekend, I'll be at Expo and talking to heaps of people, and just come after doing that for a little while and realising you don't die, that anxiety just disappears, and it makes me feel much happier, more social, friendly. And I guess one of the perks of being a barber is that you get to do that every day. You've got so many people coming in and out of the chair and having those discussions, which is really cool.
Yeah. Well, like being a barber, you do create your own identity. You really do. People come to the shop to see you. They like you. They come back to you. You've done a great job for their hair, but they also like your character and your personality. And that's something that goes hand in hand with what you're doing for them. So, like, I sort of liken being out there on the floor. It's like doing a little show. You're out there, you're a little personality there doing your thing in front of all these people, and then when the door shuts at 5 o'clock, you go home and you've got your normal life going on and everything that's going on around you. So for barbering to be a therapy for the person who's standing behind the chair, it's that concentration, it's that involvement through the day, and then outside work is a different life.
Amazing. And because you have been in the industry for 30 years, I've been dying to ask you, what advice do you have for young people that are thinking about becoming barbers? And especially I find a lot of people in the industry like having a bit of a profile, either on Instagram or social media, or being ambassadors for brands. Yeah. What advice do you have for those sort of people?
I would absolutely advise anybody, if they're thinking about it, definitely take the step and jump into barbering. But, remember to be you. Don't try and be somebody else. On Instagram, there's lots of people who, are very flamboyant on Instagram. They're very out there with what they do. That's great, but just remember your personality. It's the person who's sitting in the chair before you. Just be yourself.
So would you say, the big picture, you might have these lofty goals, but it's the day-to-day that matters. Each client comes in just focusing on what they want and putting your best work every day.
Definitely, yeah. And focus on the day-to-day. It's a grind. So a lot of people drop out. I mean, typically in an apprenticeship that, is 3 years long or whatever, your biggest dropout rate is in your second year. And that's mainly because they suddenly realise that, oh my God, this is tough. All of a sudden the glamour of everything that was in their heads about being a hairdresser or a barber is gone, because their feet hurt, their back hurts, they're getting picked on by the seniors, they're not on the floor doing all of the haircuts that they think that they might be capable of doing. So, you do have a big dropout rate. Don't drop out. Push through. Keep going. Get inspired. Get on Australian Female Barbers and look at all the cuts that are going through that page and all of the inspiration from other people, because, you can do it.
Ergonomics is one that is interesting. I have some friends that have, any job, when you're doing the same thing over and over, you've got to be mindful of that. And I might do a separate episode with an expert in that area for barbers. But one thing I will say, although you're on your feet all day, that one thing I found out recently is one of the key things for longevity in life is having a lot of low-level activity going on from day to day rather than sitting on your butt. And again, one of the perks of being a barber is you get to do that.
And on that point too, you have to be fit and capable and your mind in the right place to get out on the floor. If you've had a big night and you're hungover and you're having a bad day, or you had a fight with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or your mum and dad are being down on you or whatever, you have to leave that at the door when you walk out. Otherwise, you're not going to enjoy what you do.
Amazing. Collette, thank you very much for being on the show. If people want to get a hold of you and find out and help you out with the things that you're doing, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Direct message me on Australian Female Barbers. I'm on all the time, to the point where it's getting obsessive and taking over my life. But that's okay too. So DM me.
Great.
Australian Female Barbers, DM me.
Amazing. Great. Thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
This podcast was brought to you by Milkman Grooming Co. Did you know the right facial hairstyle can completely change the way you look? It can make you look younger. It can elongate angles to a round head. It can disguise a baby face. Much like myself, acne scars and other skin blemishes can be completely disappeared with the crafty use of facial hair. What kind of facial hair do you have right now? Are you clean shaven? Got a beard maybe? What about a moustache? They're getting pretty trendy lately. Well, the good news is, no matter what style you choose, Milkman Grooming Co. has you covered. They've got a huge selection of beard oils, balms and shampoos. They've got shave lubricants, aftershave serums, razors, brushes, combs and yes, even moustache wax. All their wet products are formulated and made in Australia by qualified scientists. They use eco-friendly ingredients, rich in botanicals, and they all incorporate the latest technology in skin and hair care. No matter what style you're rocking, Milkman Grooming Co. will keep you fresh between the ears. Find their gear at Shaver Shop, your local barber. If they don't have it, ask them to get it in. And www.milkmanaustralia.com.